This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we'll try this again. Thanks for being patient. Sorry, Andy. Go ahead, Neil.
Neil Weiss, General Manager, Urbandale Water Utility and alternate board member.
Royce Hammond, Senior Rural Water and alternate board member.
John McEwen, Urbandale Water Utility, delegate.
Okay.
Caitlin, you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead, Caitlin.
Caitlin Caldwell, Des Moines Waterworks, note taker.
Ted Corrigan, I'm the CEO at Des Moines Waterworks, and I am an alternate board member.
Sue Huppert, I'm the additional member for Des Moines Waterworks. Amy Kaler, I'm the CFO for Des Moines Waterworks, and I'm an alternate.
Carol Freeman, Warren Water District, and I'm the primary.
Okay, I'll start going online. Brad?
Brad Dietz, City Administrator for the City of Waukee and an alternate.
And Chelsea.
Chelsea Huseman, City Manager, City of Polk City. I'm an alternate.
All right, Dale.
Dale Atchison, Urbandale Water Utility.
Diane.
I'm Diane Munns. I'm a member of the Des Moines Water Works, and I am the primary member of this board.
Jake.
Jake Anderson, City of Grimes.
Jamie. Jamie's our communications consultant for West Des Moines Waterworks. Jody.
Jody Smith, West Des Moines Waterworks.
John Edwards.
John Edwards, Clyde Mayor, new board member.
Kevin Hensley.
Kevin Hensley, City of Grimes, Public Works.
Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay Offenberger, City Clerk for City of Norwalk.
Luke.
Luke had a comment in the chat that he doesn't have a mic.
Oh, thanks. Okay, Luke Nelson, City of Norwalk. And then Matt.
Matt McQuillan, City of Clive, alternate.
Mike.
Mike Poggy Weaver, City of Johnston.
I've got Rick. Rick Granger, maybe. All right, Sarah Swisher.
Sarah Swisher, Assistant Finance Director, City of Johnston.
And Scott.
Good morning, Scott Sergsena, West Des Moines resident.
Stan.
Stan's with Warren Water District, General Manager.
And Tom.
Tom Cope, Johnson City Council delegate.
And I think I had David Jones. I think you were hopping on there at the end there.
I'm on the call. I apologize for being late. We had a fire alarm going off here.
Oh.
Glad everything's okay there. Okay, well, we'll get started. First thing on the agenda is to review the minutes that were sent out from the January 29th meeting. And I just wanted to open it up to see if there are any additions or corrections to those minutes.
I would move approval if there aren't any.
Well, I think are we going to vote on them? We're not really a formalized entity. I think I just wanted to make sure there weren't any, we're not a formalized entity yet, so I just want to make sure that they're correct and reflected in the minutes. Any changes from anybody? Okay, well, we'll move on. Those will, I think they have been in draft form posted to the website that we're using just to sort of be transparent and publish the information out there. So if you want to, when we have the next minutes, I'll refer you to where to go for both the minutes and the videos that we've been posting. We're just doing that, again, the CIWW is not a public entity yet, but we're trying to be as transparent as possible in the process. So I'll send you where that's at. So next item is the status of the 28EF filing.
Christina, just for your notes, there's a chat. This is Jody Smith. Rick saying that his audio isn't connecting, and he's a Xenia Rural Water member.
Oh, okay, very good. Is that Dan? It says Richard.
Must be Dan.
Okay.
He's in Baltimore, his son's out.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, Jody. I'll make that note. I will pull up just kind of it's kind of 2 and 3 together, because I think Amy Kaler was gracious enough to summarize this document here on where we're at with filing and maybe provide any other comment.
Yeah, we are making good progress towards collecting all of the signature pages, which we will need before we can file with the state. So I appreciate all of the folks in your communities that I've worked with to get those signature pages. They can just return them to me, email me. So you can see the status to the right of this chart. We have some signature pages coming in next week. I think those coincide with regularly scheduled meetings. And you can see there that we've requested, or I've requested a couple others that I'll work with those communities and districts to get those in. So we hope to get these all collected by March. We'd like to file, and a lot of the startup activities require us to be an official organization, which we are not until we file with the state. So the board representatives are also listed there. Please add to Warren Water District, Andy Fish, Assistant Manager, as the alternate. I missed that. But the board is filled, which is great to see.
I think the other thing that we had asked from a follow-up from last time is to start thinking or acting on who your representatives are going to formally be to the technical committee and the long-range planning committee. The technical committee has been meeting for a while. The long-range planning committee has not met at all. So we just asked that each of the councils and boards over the next month or so formalize who their appointment will be for those committees. And let Amy know, Amy Kaler at Des Moines Water Works, she's kind of helping coalesce all that information, so we've got that.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Absolutely.
Does that need to be the representative or alternate, or can it be someone else from the district?
So it's, I think we're asking for a representative and an alternate. I would say those two committees, particularly the technical committee, has primarily been made up of staff members at this point. The long
There's
range
even a
committee.
statement in the agreement about who would be most appropriate for the technical committee. If I'm not mistaken, it talks about somebody who's familiar with the operations, maintenance needs of the utility. So right now, I think that's pretty much all staff people who've been attending that. And you've been going to those?
I went to the last one.
Yeah. But it does not have to be. It does not.
Directed. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
How many?
What kind of You just need us to designate somebody, or are you looking for sort of formal, you need a resolution from our council? Just a ministerial question.
Yes, that's a good question. We did just had a simple motion at our board meeting to identify those folks. We didn't sign a resolution per se, so it's just a identification of who those representatives are going to be. Jody, do you know, I mean, at the, or maybe Roy said the WRA, I don't know that, was there a formal process for your other committees?
I've been off of it too long to say, but last night Xenia did have a resolution appointing a member and an alternate for the technical
committee.
Thank you.
This is Diane. This is just a point of order on how we're going to refer to ourselves, because some people have said members and some people have said delegates. And so is the way it's represented in 28E is that we are the board representative.
I think it's trustee.
It's trustee.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I have to confirm on the committee.
we probably ought to get a common term so we can refer to ourselves consistently.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident it's trustee in the 28E for the.
It is.
But for the technical committee, I think they're just representatives.
It's an individual.
There you go. Individual. Does that help, Dan? We probably should change it on this table to trustee and alternate as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think members of community is appropriate.
Yeah,
The
just to
committee.
be consistent with the.
Yes, so we will clean that up, and it's a good point. So trustee and alternate for the actual board, the CIWW board, and you said committee members, how we're referring to the technical and long range committee. Any questions on, we kind of took those discussion items, the status of the 28EF filing and then the board appointments, just to reiterate whatever we can do to kind of keep moving that along as far as signing the page and getting that to Amy, and then pushing where we can to get the USDA approval will be helpful. And all of that matters because, as we said, there's some things that can't be done until the board is seated. And there's certainly plenty to do before the actual operational commencement date. So we'll make sure we provide as much time as possible to get everything needed so we're ready for that operational commencement date.
Do we know what's involved in the USDA approval?
Royce.
Right.
Well, to be direct about that, we had to hire Eric Bullard to look into that, frankly, because it has to do with bonding, financing, and whether or not we are in compliance with loan covenants. So other than that, yes, we are transferring some assets and that they think they may have loan money against, which they haven't, and they just need proof. So it really seems a lot like just minor proof of what we're actually doing, what we have done in the past.
And I will say that I'm going to need to follow up and see if we need to do that as well, because we also fall into the same category.
I was told Warren did not.
Okay.
You may want to double check, but.
Okay.
So now we don't, they're not really backed by it.
Okay.
Yeah, we might want to double check.
Yeah.
And Xenia has a little different because they have an asset that's.
We have an asset that we're transferring, and we also have loans that have been paid off and refinanced and paid off and refinanced. So it's a little bit more difficult to follow a direct line on the financing.
Well, the reason I bring it up is last year on the partnership trip, there was a meeting with the Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and one of the questions they had was, tell us how this, regional water entity is coming along. They had other questions. And I know you were attending another meeting, so I went to that one, but it might be that that individual is someone we just want to make them aware of, hey, we're at this point, and you'll start to hear from the various entities just as kind of recent.
The local office has been very positive all along. It's when it got to the hands of the attorneys in a regional office that things ground to a halt.
Got it. So maybe we don't need to go there, but they were aware, at least in DC.
Okay. Any other discussion on board appointments of the 28 EF filing? Okay. Go back to my.
Stan just texted him. He said, we did not, I got the okay from the USDA. So his mic must not be working.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan.
So, okay, that's good news. We'll move on to the proposed meeting time and location. If you recall, we had an initial sort of spreadsheet of all the various city meetings and board meetings and other meetings that many of our trustees often are part of, and trying to find an appropriate time and location. I think we have settled on that ideally the MPO office is the best location, just because of the size of CIWW board and the alternates and likely the staff that will be attending. And so we kind of narrowed it down. I narrowed it down to, I think, probably 5 or 6 windows. And then I sent a note to Tracy, I think it's Tracy at MPO, to kind of vet that through to make sure there weren't maybe other meetings being hosted at MPO that we weren't aware of, just to see the boardroom availability. And so we're kind of, and based on feedback that we had the last time, we're down to these 2 times right now. That's the first Wednesday at 8 or 8:30. The office at the MPO doesn't open until 8. So, and then the 4th Wednesday at 3 p.m. is the other slot that is currently open with the MPO. And I think trying to avoid as best we can where people are at as far as, I recognize that some of us have late board meetings, and then, getting downtown that next morning could be challenging. Certainly a lot of, it's a challenging group to try and find a time. So I guess I want to open it up for discussion to see if maybe we missed something as far as a large meeting that one of these 2 timeframes would be in conflict, and then, probably hear some discussion, and we might just kind of go through and see where people are at, because I'm sure, I think it would be nice if we had 100% on one, but I doubt that that's going to be the case. So we probably just need to pull the group and see where the majority of everybody can land. So. Questions or comments about those things or conflicts that we are missing?
Christina, I'm assuming that remote will be also still be an access.
Yeah, I think that's our plan. It seems to be the plan for most of our boards to have remote access. We don't have any attorneys here, but I think I think as long as you have there's something in the code about if you can't be in attendance for reasonable purposes, I think you can join online. Don't quote me on that, I'm not an attorney, but we can get clarification. But yes, we will make online available.
Christina, I'll just mention, I think I heard from last time, I think there was some mention, I can't remember who it was, that the mornings were a little bit harder for some of the folks way out west to get down there. So I personally don't have a problem with the afternoon on Wednesday, but I know that that might be harder for those folks that aren't, that are elected officials and not staff. But that's what I would throw out there. I don't know if that was you, Jake, or somebody else who mentioned that last time about the morning ones being a little harder.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it was me, but I am staff, but I'm not gonna go downtown for a 7 o'clock meeting. I'm just not gonna do it. I'll log in though.
And Jake, I think that first Wednesday avoids, the one positive thing is I don't think you have a council meeting the night before versus the second and fourth morning. So there's a little better for you that way. At least you don't have a late Tuesday night meeting, but I'm sure you have a workshop probably somewhere in there.
This is John McEwen. I guess the only thing, if you're going to use these Wednesdays, which it seems like we should, that the 8:30, 9 o'clock seems to maybe be better than the 4, especially for those coming out down. Traffic's a little bit different. I'm not too excited even myself about leaving at 5 o'clock, 5:15 out of downtown to try to get back.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I know I can't make it in person Wednesdays at 3 p.m. because I work and I've got an hour drive to get to downtown Des Moines. So the morning is much better for me. But I can call in remotely for either one. Yeah, I sent other days of the week too. We'd certainly get into a lot of other conflicts, and I really didn't think anybody wanted to have a board meeting on Fridays. Seems to be a time that a lot of people want to take.
Seems like a awful.
I was gonna say this time was great.
You have the ability to do a quick poll, morning or afternoon?
Sure, we can do a,
Can you do it here?
oh, well, gosh, now you're asking a lot.
Well, you've got Carol there.
I've never done it.
From a
Maybe
timing,
in the chat. I don't know. Because the chat gets recorded. What I do?
Christina, this is Jody Smith. From a time perspective, but I saw a chat from John Edwards, 8:15. It seems to me that expecting the MPO office to be ready at right at 8 o'clock is asking a lot, and have the room set up, et cetera. So 8:15 or maybe even 8:30 would make it easier. And John's reference to traffic would even go to 9 o'clock, but that's getting a little bit later for some folks. So it's kind of a crapshoot. But both Wednesdays work for me personally.
I have a standing meeting. I just realized the standing meeting at 9 a.m. on every Wednesday morning, so I can attend before that remotely,
Well, if we get a show of hands, maybe if we get a show of hands morning or afternoon, then we could just narrow down on which time.
Okay. We're getting hybrid. Everybody
don't have
has
a preference. How do we vote? Are we not? I don't.
Here, let's just do a roll call.
Okay.
Morning or afternoon, or which option? The Wednesday 8 or 8:30, Wednesday morning, or the fourth Wednesday in the afternoon. All right, I'm gonna go through the audience here first. Ted?
Christine, I'm assuming you're just wanting the alternates and the representatives to vote, correct?
Yes, we'll do that. Give me a second to write mine. Okay, Ted.
Morning.
Retiring the end of June, either.
I have to have that category. Okay, either. All right,
Either.
Morning if it's at 8 a.m., afternoon if it's not at 8 a.m. Sorry to make that difficult.
So
I can't do 8:30 because I would only be able to start for like half an hour.
afternoon is your availability. Is that what you're saying?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would prefer 8 a.m., but yeah, I guess afternoon's my availability if we have to do anything other than 8. So basically either, I can,
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
Andy?
Either.
Morning.
Afternoon.
All right, hold on here. Jody?
Either.
David Jones?
I can do either.
Is Jeff on the line? I don't think we have him.
He's not. And I can check with him, but I don't think it's gonna. I think he could probably do either.
Okay. Mayor Edwards?
Prefer morning.
Matt?
Either is fine.
Diane?
Either.
Tom? Hope?
Prefer afternoon.
Is Brian Burkhart on the line? I don't think so. Let's say join later. Jake?
I'd prefer afternoon, but if there's a remote option, either's fine.
Alex isn't on the line. And for Norwalk, Mayor Phillips, I don't think is on the line. I think Lindsay, I don't know if
He would probably be fine with either. He is retiring from his job at the end of March, so I think he would be all right with either.
Okay, very good. I don't think George is on the line. Chelsea from Polk City.
Afternoon would work better for me.
Okay. Not John Sullivan. Here it is. Mayor Clark. See, she was on the line. I don't think so. Brad.
I don't think she's here. I'm guessing afternoon's better for her, but I can check. I'm assuming she could probably make morning work, and I can do either.
And then Scott, let's see here. Dan, I don't know if you got your audio to work. You pop up in the chat. Okay. So we've got 10 for either and 3 for Wednesday morning and 4 for Wednesday afternoon. Decided vote there. Wow. So I think because, I mean, just with the roll call here, I think we're gonna try and go for Wednesday afternoons. this is just to start and the board can decide later. I mean, it's just really a way to start and get a first couple of meetings on the books that we know works for the majority of folks. And then the board ultimately can decide their ultimate meeting schedule at a later time.
Question, so for the MPO office downtown, I'm wondering if most people are planning to actually call in remotely, do we want to consider it being mostly remote and not having to worry about going downtown? Would that open up people's flexibility any, or time flexibility?
I don't know, how does, any discussion from the group? I find that it can be hard to have a all virtual board meeting. Yeah, it can be challenging for the discussion at times, especially those first few meetings where you guys are gonna have a lot on the agenda. It'll be challenging, maybe.
Well, also if it's mostly virtual or, then the MPO facilities would be required and then you open up other possibilities. I find in-person meetings to be a little easier to dialogue, but
Christina.
I don't know, go ahead.
Real quick, one thing I wanted to point out, just looking at calendars, I didn't think about this till now on the fourth Wednesdays, is in the months of November, December, you're going to run against the holidays almost every time. Just something to keep in mind, because I think if I remember the 2080, I think the budget approval is in December or November, correct?
Yeah, and they may require special meetings anyways. I'm not sure. There is and I'm not the city, but I know that they're having to have like special public hearings for their budget. I don't know if that'll apply to CIWW. We always have had a special public meeting for the budget here. You guys.
Just know for 2024, the fourth Wednesday in November and December is the day before Thanksgiving and Christmas Day.
We don't need more than 10 meetings a year anyway. We're going to be real efficient about this as soon as this meeting's over.
Yeah.
We don't need to approve the budget.
Well, maybe we'll start with the Wednesday afternoon, and again, the board can set, if there's a push to try and go to mornings. It's not gonna, the other challenge with the first week is whoever's doing financials you're gonna be in the rears a little more because you're not gonna have enough time to do that prior month's financials. So you'll be behind in that respect, so. Good point. Any other discussion? Well, at least for the first couple of meetings, we'll try for Wednesday at 3 o'clock. See how it goes.
Fourth Wednesday.
Fourth Wednesday. Okay.
That'd be the month of April that we're shooting.
Well, yes, that's the month of April that we're shooting for.
So you're not meeting in March?
I don't think that we'll have everything filed in hand in order to have a meeting. Not unless something really changes in the next week with the USDA approval. I think it's gonna take a little time to get that taken care of. Okay, so I think if you saw your email, you saw that there's a draft agenda that staff between a couple of utilities here have put together as a first stab at what the first agenda might look like for CIWW. There's certainly a number of items on this agenda. I think all of us commented that it's a healthy agenda, but the challenge is that there's a few things that certainly have to be done at the very beginning in order to move the organization forward. So I guess I would open up the discussion for questions or comments about the draft agenda as far as if there are items that you believe that we're missing or items that you're unsure about we should include or not, so. Any
Christina,
thoughts? Go ahead.
Christina, this is Jody, and the actual, or the draft minutes, draft agenda, we had an initial conversation a long time ago about at least preliminary bylaws. To have something that gets us by from the get-go. And that's not on the draft. And then the other thing that I thought of was the early on, we need to establish where to post the agendas, location, et cetera. And then after that, you're going to have a designation as to the where the minutes are going to be published in the Des Moines Register or the Business Record are probably the two most logical options. But so I can see possible 3 more discussion items, and I think in reality probably action items on those 3 would be most appropriate. So.
Okay.
Jody, Sue Hubbard, I was thinking about the discussions we had too on the board policy manual. And I know that we want to keep everyone involved, but I wondered if a subgroup, since we're not having a March meeting, and I brought ours for Des Moines Water Works, but might want to look at some various board policies that many of us have and consider putting together a template, at least to have something to respond to, so we're not starting with, okay, now let's talk about something as technical as a board policy. I mean, ours is crazy long, 47 pages, and I'm sure yours are as well. And I don't know if we want to really try to tackle that in a board meeting, just as an idea.
So do you think that approving an interim board policy is something that should be added to this first meeting? Is that what I hear you saying?
Or reviewing a template?
Reviewing a template.
Yeah, I don't think maybe approving that. I want to give everyone plenty of time to take it back to their teams and discuss, but maybe just a subcommittee of a variety of sizes of organizations that could say, and quite frankly, I think we need some legal involvement to, if we're going to do that, but at least it would give us something to respond to. And maybe that's taking it too far before we have our first meeting, but Jody and I have, in some of our meetings, we've talked about the importance of a policy manual pretty soon.
I don't think that would be too far for the first meeting to have something to look at. And even before that smaller group got together, I think we could look at a few options and bring something to the group for consideration that then can be taken to the board for discussion.
Okay. I think the question on some of these, and I want to make sure everybody is comfortable or ask if anybody specifically wants to be involved. It's too big a group to try and sort that out, I think, as a large group. And if you specifically want to be part of the discussion on drafting that board policy template, this is kind of the opportunity to sort of say so. Otherwise, in a lot of instances, staff are sort of taking currently staff, I think, with Des Moines Water Works, West Des Moines Water Works, and some with Urbandale are taking the reins on draft things. So we're open to whoever wants to participate in that can participate in that. So, but recognize that a lot of you have other duties too, so.
And this is Diane. I'm assuming maybe incorrectly, but that we can have the legal team put together some basic bylaws for us, or is that something that you think this group should do? I mean, I think the code is pretty specific on what needs to be in there.
No, I think, you're correct that we can have legal, and probably what we should clarify for everybody is when we say legal team, what we have been really doing is tasking Rick Malm, who represents Des Moines Waterworks, and Amy Beatty, who represents West Des Moines Waterworks and sometimes represents Urbandale and some of the other communities. They have been working together on some of the legal items. So if everybody's comfortable, we would task them with drafting the bylaws ahead of the first meeting. It's a little bit of a balance, at least, I think, from a legal perspective has been our perspective.
Then the other thing that I wanted to bring up, the executive committee, can you remind us who's on that and whether or not the agreement talks about duties of the executive committee?
Yes, I should have brought it. I was waiting for signatures for that.
The executive committee is comprised of the current chair.
Christina, that document I sent you last night, you could pull that up, has that information as to who the members are.
Yes. Let me figure out the best path to pull that. I knew I was missing one document I wanted.
Basically, what it says for the first 3 full calendar years, after the effective date, the chair and called for members from Des Moines Waterworks, Urbandale Water Utility, West Des Moines Waterworks, and the most immediate past chair, which is not going to be possible, of course, and then one additional trustee elected at large. So.
I worked that backwards, saying who's on the executive committee, because we have at our first meeting the decision on who our chair is and those kinds of things, and it's for a 3-year term. And are we going to be comfortable to do that right away? Is everybody okay with that, knowing that that person will be on the executive committee? The other thing is I assume there's not the scope of duties of the executive committee or responsibilities in there, and we probably ought to have somebody take a look at what the role of the executive committee is.
The language in the 28E, 28F refers to the responsibilities or actions. It also has a catch-all phrase, if I remember right, that says whatever the board by resolution assigns tasks to the executive committee.
Okay.
So it's kind of open, really, but it puts the onus on the board to essentially tell the executive committee what the members of that committee can do or should do. So.
Yeah. And maybe I don't know this group really well, but I know a lot of you know each other pretty well. So if we're ready to designate a chair and do that at the first meeting for a 3-year period, we should go ahead. But I think we should have some roles defined on what the executive committee can do, and we can add to that, but at least initially, so we know what kind of power we're giving to that committee.
Yeah, so I will maybe excerpt out of the 28E the information on the executive committee and send that out to the group. If that's helpful, so you're not trying to hunt through it. Through about 146 pages.
Thanks.
It probably in that case, Christina, send out the whole section, Article X on the committees of the board, because they're all pertinent.
So I just want to circle back. Is there any concern of this group of having legal start a draft bylaws and then having staff, the staff level draft a template for board policies? We might consult with legal on that document too. And is there anybody in this group that's interested in participating in those sort of discussions and trying to get that topic going?
This is Diane. I'll be on that group.
With
Okay.
Diane going on the policy side, I'll work with the council if they ask on the bylaws side.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm gonna check the chat real quick. Okay. Any other items on the agenda? We have several that we've listed here to add to the list. Is there any other discussion on the draft agenda?
Christina, it occurs to me that this is the agenda, but each of these items is probably gonna have some sort of a memo or some. And so over the next couple of months, we're gonna be putting all that together. And as I sit here today, I assume that's gonna be staff from Des Moines and West Des Moines who are primarily doing that, unless there's discussion about who else wants to be involved in putting together these.
We also discussed that Dale's retired now, so he'll be helping us.
Just do it from home. That's a great idea.
Well, I think, does that get to the discussion of an interim executive director? And the discussion of, do we need one? And what would that person do? And how soon do we need that person?
I think that's a discussion for the board at the time that the board is seated. I guess that's how I perceive it. I don't know if, do you feel like they should be some decisions up front about that?
Well, there could certainly be discussion today. I mean, people have perspectives.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. If we can make decisions before we're an entity, but we can certainly talk about what are people's opinions on having an interim.
Yeah, I guess this goes to Christina and Ted and Amy. There's a lot of work here that you guys are taking on. Do you feel comfortable doing that? Or should we be thinking about getting somebody to do those things?
Well, one thing I will say is that we're comfortable working on it as long as the larger group is comfortable with us working on it. What I don't want to have happen is the perception that we're just taking over or so I want to avoid that. And if we want to have appoint someone to do it before that perception, great. If we want to have that conversation before the meeting.
Yeah, Ted, I think the other thing that's important is these, and I personally don't believe that all of these actions have to happen on the first board meeting. There's certainly, I think we can bring forth a group of them that action can occur on, and others may simply be extended discussion that will also be work that will occur after the first board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, there are a handful of items that will have to move forward on the first one. And I guess from my perspective, a number of us at the staff level have put in a lot of time to this point, getting the 20 to a final place. And so I think we all have a vested interest in helping it get stood up as an organization. there is provision, once the operational commencement date happens, to reimburse at least the operating contractors for time, but there's not prior to that. But I know that many of us have spent a lot of time getting us to this point. I want to make sure that there's a seamless transition and getting it started up as well.
Well, can I clarify that, Christina, in that it's not necessarily staff time, but we're referring to legal and other things that have out of pocket for those organizations. Is that correct?
True, but right now, we're tracking those hours, and some of that is already slated to be reimbursed in the 28E. There's about like 14,000 left on the contract we have with PFM. So there's some ability for support. I would say, my intent is to track that, and we might approach CIWW for the reimbursement between the time we sign the 28E and the time that the entity hires their own. Try and.
You're talking legal.
Legal.
Not staff.
Not staff. No, not staff. Outside consultants, I'll call it.
Yep, I agree.
Does anybody have any, I guess, concerns or objections or about staff taking sort of some effort working with legal to try and get some, particularly the items that we know need to happen, the first agenda, and getting that prepared? Not hearing anything.
We can share with the group in advance of the meeting too.
Oh, yeah.
If anyone has concerns or questions.
And here's a perfect example for insurance for the board. I have an application. I've been working with Jake Robertson from Holmes Murphy, who wants to get a quote from both ICAP and other insurance, but I have to actually apply. I opened this application, not sure what I'm gonna fill out yet, but to try and get a quote for the board to act on and underwriting to look at it and provide us a quote, that process needs to start now, because it's gonna take a few weeks for us to have quotes to be able to act on. So
Will they provide a quote if we're not an official entity?
I haven't gotten there yet. I mean, I've been in conversations with Jake about CIWW and insurance from both operating contract and CIWW. So we've had some conversations. So I think so. Otherwise, he wouldn't say that he could. But I opened that application. I was like, quote format. It doesn't even happen. Anyways, but those are the types of things that staff need to act on now, so that we're prepared for the first meeting, so that you guys can decide where you want to have your board insurance through. So at least an interim board insurance. So
it might be good as getting prepared for the first meeting to note what things have to be done accomplished at that first meeting. Because there is a lot on there, but what do we have to make a decision on?
priorities. Yeah, we probably should break out those action items to something like priority action items and additional action items. So. Okay, well, I'm not hearing objections from staff starting to prepare the necessary information for the first board meeting. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair. And Christina, again, a lot of the staff has done so much work on this, but for the rest of us that are just coming into this, a couple of big ones that jump out to me would be like the interim executive director and the executive director search process. Is there any input that staff would like from all of us before you maybe lay out a memo as to what your thoughts are on that?
I am really interested in Diane's question from before, just about does the group think we need an interim? Because it could be months before, and then also we've had some discussion about executive director, possibility of hiring a firm, an engineering firm as an example, to provide that kind of oversight and that kind of administrative support. And is there any interest in that? Should we be thinking about that, or should we just be thinking about, okay, who would be an appropriate search firm to find a person who's going to be the executive director? And I would be really interested in the group's perspectives on that, because I think it would be directional for us.
And have an engineering firm as the executive director?
Right.
How would that work?
You know, they would probably have a staff person who they would appoint. And I think of Xenia when LD McMullen did it as an employee of Snyder and Associates, and Snyder and Associates kind of took over for a period of time. And LD McMullen was the person who sort of ran the board meetings or attended board meetings and you know, was able to sign for things like tax ID numbers and some of that kind of stuff. It was just, they hired Snyder to do that. LD was the person, he was an employee there, but then he also had that administrative backup that they could create the packet, you know, and do those kind of things. It's an option. You know, I don't know that that's what we want to do long-term. I don't know that it's what we want to do short-term, but it's an option.
Yeah, and I think we are going to want to get these kind of job descriptions in place. Is the job description for somebody short-term different than long-term? And maybe it's too early to even know what we want, but I think we do have to get, again, what a job description of what we'd want that person to do, or firm or whoever.
This is Jody, and I'm of the opinion that we need to have a some type of job description, as Diane's talking about, for sure, for an interim person or firm, so we know what we're looking for, and not put the burden entirely on Des Moines Waterworks staff, West Des Moines Waterworks staff, and Urbandale, with Dale and Neil now. Well, Neil in place and Dale in transition. So those sort of things I think need to be talked about earlier rather than later. I have some thoughts. I'm sure others on the call would have some thoughts as to what you're looking at short term and what you may be looking at long term for executive director. It's going to take a while to get the full-time person in place, but I don't think you can ignore the short term in between.
Jody, are you thinking that might be a topic for a small group to discuss here in the next couple of weeks?
Yes.
What the primary functions of short-term and long-term, or interim and long-term executive director might be?
I am of that opinion, but I'm also of the opinion that it needs to be open up to this group to decide, to at least have a comfort level with who's going to be making, or who's going to be in that conversation group. I don't think we want to presume that it's going to be always the same 4 or 5, 2 or 3 folks, because those other may have some thoughts that need to be considered and taken into consideration. So.
Well, and one of the questions I would have for that group is, if someone serves as an interim, does that make sure that they would not apply for the full-time position, or would they be a candidate? But that discussion can happen. I think it'd be great. I mean, if I could just say, if David Jones or Matt McClellan could help with that subcommittee group, I think it would be great to get some additional involvement. Maybe Xenia or anyone else that's interested. Because to Ted's point, I don't think we want this to totally be driven by, maybe the water utilities.
David Jones in the chat said I would be willing to do that.
Would be
Pat,
willing
are you
to. Sure.
Okay.
And maybe Jody, if you've given that some significant thought. Or is anyone else interested in being on that maybe?
I have the time to help wherever folks are comfortable with me throwing some assistance. So I have time.
Andy, is that of interest to you?
Yeah. I just know that the executive director recruitment, and it's kind of a higher level, but it should be very, very public. So everybody kind of can see what we're doing. So getting an engineering firm to be the executive director might be perceived as too corporate running a public utility. So that's just for the long term.
Mm-hmm. I think it's something that the group can discuss and kind of get a sense of, do we want to have an interim person, and if so, who?
The right thing.
Yeah.
And if that's the way we want to go, that might be a kind of recruiting process where you have to go to people. As opposed to,
like, with the interim, the public could perceive it as, oh, the interim was ushered in by these few people, and now they got pushed up to the executive, or the long-term one, without a whole lot of
Transparency.
Yeah, for public input, kind of.
I can see where,
Sue's saying.
yeah, what Sue's saying, where whoever serves as interim isn't part of the long-term search. They're just interim only position.
But to Diane's point, we want to make sure we put that in the job description, for the interim. This is an interim only. We would not be considered a candidate.
Yeah, and I guess I would see the duties of an interim as very different than a long-term executive director, more constrained, just get us up and going. And
Yeah. Well, maybe we can, at the staff level, put some thought to what we think would be helpful, knowing, we've kind of itemized a list of tasks and some of those things that we think an interim executive director would be helpful on. So.
And then we have 4 people, it sounds like, and anyone else that's interested.
Yep.
Jody, David, Matt, and Andy. And probably staff, if you're putting together a preliminary document to here we have sub.
So I know we're over our time, and we will work to get that sort of discussion going on the interim executive director. We have plenty of time here before the first meeting. Is there any other comments on the agenda? I think what I heard was we're going to break it out into what I call priority action items versus other action items, so that the board will have a sense of what really truly needs to happen in that first order of business. And I didn't hear any objections to staff working on, we'll have to come up with the right term. We call them blueies here, and you call them pinkies, and anyways, yellows. So we'll have to come up with a new color for the board. But the board action items, I didn't hear any objections with staff kind of coming up with the content for that. Any other discussion at this point? Do we want to try and find, because we think we're going to be delayed into April, one more meeting time to talk about things like the interim executive director? Do we want another meeting time?
Do you think you can have some subcommittee meetings and still squeeze in another meeting before April?
Probably not with spring break and schedules.
That's
Okay. Well, then in the meantime, staff will be continuing to work on items and we might send maybe an update email might be probably helpful to the group. Maybe after the committee's had a chance to meet on the interim executive director. Is that okay with everybody? Yes, I see some nods of heads. Matt's shaking his head. No, he's shaking his head, yes. Okay, very good. All right, is there any other discussion items for the meeting today, or we?
So the meeting will be, if it's the fourth Wednesday, is that the 24th? 24th at 3 o'clock?
Can we go ahead and get that on calendars?
Yes. We will send.
Christina, could we have Amy send out the roster, I'll call it the roster?
Yes.
That she had posted.
We will update it with Andy's information and send it out to the group. And then along with that will be the board meeting, a tentative board first meeting invitation. And I'll confirm that we'll reserve the room for the NPO. Very good. All right, well, we're adjourned. Sorry, we're over about 10 minutes here. Thank you, everybody, for joining the discussion.
Thanks all.
Please grab a muffin on your way out.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.